Women who believe men cannot become women akin to KKK, gender studies professor says. A gender studies professor argued that women who believe men cannot become women are similar to the Ku Klux Klan. University of Arizona professor Susan Stryker likened feminists who object to the idea that males can become women on the basis of self-declared gender identity to white supremacists, according to Inside Higher Ed. Transgender activists routinely refer to such feminists as trans-exclusionary radical feminists or TERFs. If womanhood is a restricted country, Stryker said, referring to writer Joan Nestle, who says what those restrictions shall be? Who is womanhood for? How does one become its citizen? Stryker continued that while no bounds should exist on academic inquiry, what I see in the TERF wars is not disinterested academic inquiry. It's more akin to white supremacists wanting to propagandize other whites about foreigners, where the position of foreigners in the conversation has been deemed illegitimate in advance. Natasha Chart, board chair of Women's Liberation Front, a radical feminist organization, said in an email to the Christian Post Tuesday that no one truly does not know what a woman is, citing as evidence several examples of discrimination women as a class has faced. When women couldn't vote, play sports, attend college, or take out credit except with the permission of their father or husband, everyone knew what a woman was, and no men publicly threatened suicide if they couldn't suffer the same restrictions. When women could be arrested for indecency for wearing pants in public, everyone knew what a woman was. When there were no women's restrooms or changing rooms, keeping us out of public life, everyone knew what women and men were, Chart explained. Now there's confusion? She added that if Stryker doesn't know what a woman is, and thinks women are oppressing men by insisting that very basic, settled rights we want to redress historical discrimination are unfair to men, it's not a feminist argument, but name-calling. Conflict over gender within academia, particularly within the field of philosophy, has been brewing in the last several years as society grapples with a seemingly ever-increasing number of gender identities, such as pansexual, non-binary, and agender, proliferating on college campuses and more broadly in culture. As CP reported in May 2017, Rhodes College philosophy professor Rebecca Tuvell published an article in the feminist journal Hypatia called In Defense of Transracialism, wherein she argued that society should extend acceptance to individuals who decide to change their race in the same way transgender individuals change their gender. Those who objected to her article, like University of Tennessee's Nora Berenstein, accused Tuvell of furthering discursive transmisogynistic violence because she had used terms such as male genitalia and biological sex. She also argued Tuvell's writing had not shown sufficient reflection beyond white cisgender privilege. Stryker is not the first to make a parallel between womanhood and foreigners navigating various obstacles. In an April 3 New York Times op-ed called Is Being Trans Like Being an Immigrant?, Jennifer Finney Boylan, who is a Barnard College English professor and identifies as transgender, compared the experiences of those who transition to the opposite sex to the plight of a 9-year-old girl who lives in Tijuana, Mexico, and was detained at the U.S.-Mexico border for 30 hours earlier this year. A teacher in Virginia has been put on administrative leave for using feminine pronouns for a student who, while born female, identifies as male. Peter Vlaming, who teaches French at West Point High School, is presently on paid administrative leave pending a public hearing by the school board later this week. I won't use male pronouns with a female student that now identifies as a male, though I did agree to use the new masculine name but avoid female pronouns, stated Vlaming. Administration is requiring that I use masculine pronouns in any and every context at school. I was informed that any further instances of using female pronouns would be grounds for termination. Supporters of Vlaming launched an online petition demanding that the teacher not be fired, which as of Wednesday morning has gotten more than 1,100 signatures. ABC News affiliate Rick in Richmond reached out to students regarding the controversy, with one telling the news outlet that he was outraged over Vlaming possibly being fired. He's a really nice guy, he wanted to do everything about his students. He really does care about his students, the student declared. The thing he will not do is change his ways of thoughts and believing in things just to conform to someone else's ideologies. Laura Abel, superintendent of West Point Public Schools, said in a statement published by Rick on Wednesday that because the situation is a personnel issue, the school district is unable to provide specific information due to employee and student confidentiality. Mr. Vlaming has requested a public hearing and details regarding our recommendations will become public at that hearing, stated Abel. Until that time, it is important that we not only ensure the integrity of our employment process but also meet our responsibilities regarding safeguarding student confidentiality. Vlaming is not the only teacher having to recently deal with controversy for not using the preferred pronouns of a trans-identified student. Last month, an evangelical professor filed a lawsuit against his employer, Shawnee State University in Ohio, stating that he was being ordered to use feminine pronouns for a trans-identified student. Professor Nicholas Merriweather argued in the lawsuit against Shawnee State University that he offered to use the first or last name of a male-born student who now identifies as female, but the compromise was rejected. Instead, the university charged him following an investigation, saying he effectively created a hostile environment for the student. University officials placed a written warning in his personnel file, and warned of further corrective actions if he failed to comply. This news is brought to you by the Christian Post.